this corn ready.
All right, we are recording. Right there. We have her picture up.
You trusted me. Will I trust you again and again and again and again? You still want me. Still want you. Will I want you
Back with another interesting guest, and it's DeNiSE LiNViLLe, and I always feel like LiNViLLe is the town we go to when I'm sitting next to you. Have you ever heard of LiNViLLe, Little Horn? Sounds like somewhere you could go.
You just
Yeah, absolutely.
I know, that chin, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Did you like that, Little Horn?
Oh, yeah.
So DeNiSE is going to read to us because you're writing.
I'm writing a memoir, and this is, I was told, like 5 minutes. So it's really hard out of a memoir to choose 5 minutes, like especially when the memoir is sort of like your life that goes down like the Titanic. And every now and then, when you're writing, you just dive down and you pick up a piece and you come back up. So it's pretty much.
You shouldn't have.
It covers everything. All kinds of crazy things. So.
Can you hold the mic for you?
Yeah, that would be really cool.
All right, let's listen.
I might need my glasses too.
Okay.
I'm getting home, but I'm gonna try without it because, like, I made a super really big font.
So I have the glasses now too.
Because I'm gonna try.
And I saw Dave Grohl the other day doing a speech, and he put on his glasses, and I was really happy.
I think
He played the devil.
I think there's something serious. Yeah.
It's a pick of destiny.
There you go. He needs his glasses now too.
So this is just a little ditty off of a play. I went to 5 schools in high school, but 3 of them I went to 3 ninth grades. So this is titled
In 1 year, though. Right?
In 1 year, yeah.
I thought you got left back 3 times.
That's why I said that.
That
Yes,
happened to me.
it's simply titled my third new school in the 9th grade.
And it's funny because 3 times 3 is 9.
Oh my God! See, and I never could do the algebra. I was like, I'm still trying to
get
add
into
letters.
Numbers are always.
All right, well, you can help me with that. But the reason I ended up at this third school, the first one was in New Jersey, which seems to be a really popular topic.
Yeah,
so
that happened.
I did at least start out there, so maybe you guys will let me be in the group a little bit.
Sure.
And I got as far as 9th grade, which in New Jersey is high school.
Right.
And then we moved to the deep south, so I was demoted
back
to middle school, and we moved to an area where that was the first year that they were doing busing. They were desegregating. So I moved to the south, and this was like sort of deep south. This was ugly south. And suddenly a school that had been an all-white school, there were black kids getting bused in. And so I was sort of like, I was a bad kid.
They made you right on the back of the
with
bus.
a big mouth. And somehow it was decided amongst the staff at the school that all the problems, all the riots, everything, were basically my fault because I was the northerner who came down, and technically it is the north that caused all the problems. So, and people were calling me things even like carpetbagger, which I don't know if you know what a carpetbagger is,
Sure.
but I had to look it up in the dictionary, and I didn't, I wasn't accurate, but I thought, it was, I thought that it was really weird, being responsible for such a large thing. In the meantime, I was calling my friends back in New Jersey and saying, "You don't understand. I'm living in a third world country."
It is.
Yeah, it was.
Still is.
It's gotten better, but you
ever since air conditioning came, it's changed.
Air conditioning, and I've never been. My whole life was about trying not to be hot anymore. Anyway, so I'll read it. So this is the third school. Piedmont Open School was in the city of Charlotte, so now I was the one getting bused. The bus driver came to my house first because I lived the furthest away from the school. He was this really, really skinny black guy, and and he and I would smoke the pin joints, which was what all the black kids rolled before we picked up the other kids for school. We had about 20 minutes to ourselves before the first kids got on the bus, so we had time to relax and talk. One of the few, I can't even see because of the light. One of the few things I liked about the South, and I'm making it worse, was that when the bus driver had to cross over train tracks, they had to stop the bus on one side of the train tracks, open the door, and let a kid out, and the kid had to go out onto the train tracks, stand in the middle of the train tracks, look both ways to make sure a train wasn't coming. Then you signaled the bus to cross over, and then the bus driver let you back on the bus on the other side of the tracks. This rule was so important that even though we were stoned out of our minds, and I was the only kid on the bus, he still stopped at every train track and made me check for trains before he would cross over with the bus. I loved getting out of the bus. I loved getting out of that bus and crossing the train tracks. It was the closest I ever came to being a crossing guard or a hall monitor. After the first day, when my mom enrolled me in the school, I found out that this school was basically a dumping ground for kids who were considered non-mainstreamable, which meant that it was a warehouse for all the kids who were too smart or too stupid or too maladjusted or too recently out of juvenile detention center or too physically or mentally handicapped to go to a regular school. There were no bells when it was time to change classes. Instead, you just got to look at the clock and leave. This meant that there was a spread of about 10 minutes where people got up and pulled their things together. Because there was no late bell to signify the start of the next class, each class got shorter and shorter as the day progressed. By the afternoon, the teachers would be standing in the hallway practically begging kids to come into their rooms. You were also allowed to call the teachers by their first names. I'm pretty sure this was to ease the stress on our fragile nervous systems by erasing any suggestion of authority on the part of the teachers, which was wholly unnecessary and a little appreciated gesture. In the North, this kind of school would be considered radically progressive, and here it was just a school where the system had given up and hoped for the best. I usually went to my English class, mostly because one wall of the classroom was covered floor to ceiling with windows and wires that opened out into the city traffic, and I had never been to a school in the city before. I also liked it for the novelty of the reading partner system. This was my third school for the 9th grade, so I was getting a pretty well-rounded education in teaching styles, but I had never come across the reading partner system before. What it meant was that each kid who could read was partnered with a kid who couldn't read. And when it came time to read from the textbook, you read aloud to your partner. It was the best. My partner was this huge black guy named Trevin. If the school had a football team, he would definitely be the star with the girls crawling all over him. Here, he was just another mumbling corpse. We spent the first few weeks with me reading just loud enough for him to hear and pretending he was paying attention. I tried to point out words and get him to read them out loud, but he wasn't really into it, so we just started talking. It's not like the teacher could tell if I was reading or if we were talking with all the mumbling going on around us. We would just talk about stupid shit, and when we started talking about more personal stuff, and then of course we developed a crush on each other. After a while, things became super relaxed in class, and the teacher had us reading pretty much full time, so she could leave the classroom and do whatever it was she did out in the hallway. One of the things I have always found relaxing is doing my nails. So I started painting my nails in class. I would bring in cotton balls and nail polish remover and an emery board and a full supply of nail polishes. Trevin watched while I painted my nails and we talked. If the teacher ever entered the room, I wouldn't have noticed because by this time I had turned to my desk so that my back was facing the front of the room so Trevin and I could sit face to face. Then one day while Trevin was watching me paint my nails, he said, "Do me too," and held out his hands so I could give him a manicure as well. I really liked the idea of giving this big black guy a manicure, so I found some lotion in my bag and I gave him a long hand massage and pushed back his cuticles. And he had long fingers and the kind of nails that I really liked, the ones where the nail bed goes all the way to the tip of your finger. When I filed his nails, I made sure that I followed the edge of his nail bed perfectly. Then I would buff them and give them a coat of clear nail polish and tell him that he should put lotion on his hands and push back his cuticles every day. I became obsessed with making his hands perfect. They could be perfect. They almost were. This made him very happy, and we would both admire his hands for a long time after we finished. I liked to turn his hands over slowly and stare at the line where the black of his skin turned white on his palm. I would turn his hands slightly back and forth as the line rolled toward me and then away. Every time we met for class, he would show me his hands first thing, so I could see how well he had cared for them in my absence. Reading had stopped altogether, and sometimes I felt bad about that because I knew that fine hands were a poor substitute for literacy. But I was selfish that way, and I had fallen in love with his hands. We told each other everything, things you could never tell someone to their face, but that you could easily tell them to their hands. Sometimes our fingers would interlace at the very tips, and then slowly move down toward the base of each other's palms, and we would leave them like that until the story finished. After the semester was over, I passed Trevin in the hallway one day, and we both looked away, startled and uncomfortable, having no familiarity with the other's eyes. It occurred to me that after a brief period of staring down at a book together, we fell in love while staring down at each other's hands. I told his hands everything, and for that period of time he knew me better than anyone else on this planet. In turn, I got to travel through the minds of a black teenage guy who had lived a life that I hadn't even known existed in words. Our dialects were so different that sometimes we couldn't even understand what the other was saying, and would have to ask what a word or a phrase be repeated over and over. And even then, we would have to ask, what does that mean? But after that moment in the hallway, I purposely never looked for him anymore. I'm sure he understood better than I did. People come, people go. So that's part of
Wow, that is really amazing.
And it's a story.
So are you friends on Facebook? Have you looked them up?
No, I haven't looked him up. I hope
Here, you can hold this up.
No. But I have had other friends from other schools look me up because I never know, and it's weird because I never know when somebody asks me where did you go to high school. There is no short answers, and there's no answer that I want to give. And then when people ask me where I graduated from high school, well, that doesn't really mean much either because I only went to that school for a year, which was in Virginia Beach. But so what's weird is that I have people now with Facebook that just try to look for every single person you ever knew.
So Littlehorn.
Other people.
What do you think of these nails?
These are pretty. I don't know. But I mean,
They're very Rosemary's Baby-ish to me.
yeah. But I'm super into like flesh. Not that this isn't real. I could do other things for you though.
Like what?
I feel that I could. I feel that I could do. Yeah. No, I could.
Like what?
We
Like
could
what?
work together. There's some things over here that could be done, and
You can't file my cheekbones.
I could help with the hat too. No, the cheekbones. Okay, totally. Yeah.
You gotta keep your cheekbones.
Cheekbones, and I think you're ready for an upgrade on the hat.
She's got jungle.
Because
You think?
jungle feet.
Jungle fever.
Jungle fever.
I'm I'm a whole different type of female.
Are you a blue meanie?
Nah.
Nah. I don't think
No, no, not with those eyes. Not with those eyes.
so. That
Look
nose.
into my eyes.
So,
Pretty wild, right?
yes, very well.
Right.
So anyway, this is a short excerpt of a book that I'm writing, a memoir that I'm writing, called Stories I Tell Myself. You can read that on a lot of different levels, and that is a working title. It might change.
And how long have you been working on it?
Well, you know what's really funny, because my life got crazy fairly early. I started taking notes when I was about 12, and I think at first they were sort of the tell on people notes. But in some weird cosmic way, I always knew I'd write this book, and in spite of the fact that I've moved however many times, the one thing that I have held on to are these notes. And
Wow.
so it
So how many
it's
pages?
So cool. Oh, I've got 100 pages of notes easily. But what's so cool is that as I write, I know the story, but I look, there are these gems of like specific moments, specific lines that I couldn't write now if I didn't have those
Good
notes.
for you.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, so
Wow.
so it's really helpful. I feel like I'm sort of cribbing my own notes. I'm plagiarizing
Yeah.
myself. Which
So do you have a skeleton from your closet? It is National Chocolate Mousse Day.
Kind of like she just spoke
Yeah,
with
she
this guy.
did. She kind of did.
Yeah, I think you have to read the book. There's a lot of
Well,
skeletons
have a
in the
bunny.
book. So.
And do you have any time that you think the book? Wait, you got to tip it in the booze.
Oh, jeez, I didn't know that. Okay, is this gonna be
It's
okay?
chocolate mousse. Yeah.
But the bunny.
Nobody's died yet.
With the bunny part, I didn't know the bunny. Okay.
They say it works. My taste buds on it. Don't worry.
You're gonna try one.
Feeling it. Not fun. Sorry.
That's all
Aw.
right.
Go on.
Oh, I
Ask me the
don't
next
feel bad.
question.
I don't feel bad about it at all.
Don't they on talk shows when people have to eat things? Don't they fake eat like on those morning shows where they have news shows and somebody puts something out that?
Oh, I
Do
think they
really,
eat it.
Do they really eat that stuff?
Yeah, they eat it.
Have you ever seen Fat Al Roker? Think he doesn't eat everything on TV?
He's not fat anymore.
No, he's not.
Nah.
He had
He lost a lot of
He
weight.
had that bypass surgery, and it worked.
It worked.
Yeah, I know people that it worked on, and I
He's a
know
success.
that it didn't
He's a
work on.
success.
I saw Al Roker in the street once.
Recently?
No, a long time ago.
Yeah.
I said, look, there goes Fat Al Roker.
Well, he's not fat anymore.
He said, I am not.
He wanted to
Al
look like
Roker.
you, little horn. Oh, he said he wasn't Al Roker. Oh.
Oh, wow.
So DeNiSE, so do you have a hypothetical estimate of when the book is going to be?
Well, I had this big idea that I was going to save enough money so that I could take 3 months off and do nothing but write. And I would say that's worked about 40%. And so, and I also, I do have an editor informally, and as I get into it, some days I look at it and I'm like, this is almost done. I mean, come on, you got it. And then, as it gets a little deeper, it's more like, okay, what is this really about? And as I get a little braver about being willing to go places that, I want to make the whole thing a joke. But, I'm like into, I'm into one-offs. And now my editor is kind of like pushing me to,
Finish.
no, just to go there, like to make it a little deeper, and so finished. How about I will be finished in 9 months.
Wow, that soon?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I'm
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. So then you got to come back when it's finished.
sure.
Absolutely. So
Of
what's
course.
how do people find you? And like,
I was just talking to someone about that. Well, gee, and especially because I moved, you send up a flag. I don't know. I'm going to get a website, and you can friend me on Facebook.
You have the cutest picture I've ever seen on
Which the
Facebook.
smoking girl.
Yeah, I love it.
But you know what I have to say? I think I need to take it down because it's probably copyrighted. It was.
Well, then I'm going to snatch it before you take it down.
I love that picture.
You
So
gotta look
cool.
at her site. It's
So cool.
DeNiSE LiNViLLe
Yeah.
on Facebook. It's
Yeah.
just too cute.
Yeah, so friend me on Facebook,
Yeah.
and then I will put a website link
Nice.
on there once I get one.
And then she'll defriend you.
And then,
I've gotten into 2 Facebook fights, and I am a big enough person that I haven't even defriended them.
Good for
though
you.
One
I
of them
defriend
was
people.
homophobic and
Do you?
All the time. On your birthday.
You do? On their birthday.
Happy birthday, sucker.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh,
If
well,
I never hear from them and I don't know, sayonara.
nice. Oh, little Lord, no conscience there. So, any last shout outs?
No, I would like to thank my friend Shara for coming to see me tonight, and she's going to help me with the website. And
Nice.
She's just an amazing, if you could turn the camera on her, she's an amazing, beautiful friend of mine who is from Israel, who's traveled all over the world, went to college in the Netherlands, is here in New York, and
Nice.
you know, she'll be on here next after she does something fabulous. And my friend, did my friend Sal walk in? Sal, hi. And my friend Sal, who has a PR firm, Sal Cataldi. So, yeah, those are my shout outs.
Cool, man. Well, it's such a pleasure.
Thank
I love
you,
the
Rue.
story. It's really,
I'm glad
it's
you like
really
it.
good. I like it a
I'm glad
lot.
you like it. And, you know, it was hard to pick. When you said 5 minutes, I was like, 5 minutes.
Well, that was a good 5 minutes. I could
So-
see it. I could see it.
You
Thank
can
you,
see the
DeNiSE
hands.
LiNViLLe.
Thank
We got more. We got more.